What is our culture? What needs changing? How can we change it? And how can we do this? How do we create culture with a backbone? I want to speak tonight on culture within disability and the value of all people and the value of access. So I just wanted to give a bit of a background to follow up what you guys have said. So the anthropological definition is actions, which is our behaviours, and there's a click through, yeah. Our concepts, which is the way that we do things around here. Our ideas, which is our values and attributes, and our beliefs, our fundamental assumptions. None of these are fixed and they can all be changed. So how does culture change? I'm sorry, I thought I had a clicker. How does culture change? It's in many ways. Some people see the actions of others and reconsider their own beliefs. Others reflect their own beliefs and change their actions accordingly. Some form new ideas from the beliefs of others, but wait to act to change. People can become uncomfortable when concepts contradict their beliefs. Some are forced to change their actions through peer pressure, and then their beliefs will follow. Others' actions contradict their new beliefs, which forces them to reevaluate ideas. Which comes first? Chicken or the egg? There's actually no single answer. This is all occurring simultaneously, and we all process change simultaneously. All of these are going on in culture. The way people change and evaluate are all different. Tonight, I would like to speak on my experiences of culture and community and within the context of disability. People see me in the chair and think that I've been in the chair forever. I wasn't born with disability, but I knew of at the time. And it wasn't until I was 22 that I found myself in a wheelchair. I had a kickboxing injury. I was into running, hiking, biking, swimming, kickboxing, dancing, all of the outdoor, active, adventurous things. Ironically, I was working in the disability sector at the time. It's not lost on me. But I had a kickboxing injury, and what happened is I partially tore my hamstring and groin muscles and stretched a sciatic nerve. What I didn't know at the time is that I had an underlying connective tissue disorder that had been getting worse since I was a very young child. So CRIPS is a neurological pain disease. It's basically like draining the blood out of a blood, filling it with lighter fluid and setting it alight. The pain is that extreme. I couldn't have breeze, wind, touch, anything. It spread from my left leg to my left side, and within 3 months I'd become bedbound. I'd moved out of home when I was 16 years old. I was living in my own self-contained unit at 17. I had moved back home to save to travel overseas, and when I got sick, so I went from being very incredibly active to completely dependent on my parents and my family and my siblings again. I couldn't stand up on my own, I couldn't move my limbs on my own, and Mum would have to come in and move my limbs for me, and I would scream in horrendous pain. And so it created some really interesting dynamics. And for someone who had been incredibly independent and out there, it was a massive cultural clash. All of a sudden I found myself at 22 years old, bedbound and homebound and questioning everything, because I'm like, all I could do was move my arm. I guess some of the things that I realised at that point in time, if I was going to get through it, I was going to really have to find something solid to stand on, because certainly I had nothing solid to stand on with my health. And so I started, I think one of the foundations became counting the blessings and a gratitude list every day. So I remember I'd wake up every day and I'd be like, I can see the sun, I can see the sky, I have internet, I have a laptop, I can still connect with people. honestly. I remember my grandma, she said, what would you have done if you were born 50 years ago? I'd be like, I think God must have known that I didn't need to be born 50 years ago, because it would be horrendous. There is no concept or idea of how many young people are homebound, bedbound, and hospital-bound. So I think one of the tools I gave at the time it started is I started going, well, what can I do? I have my right arm to move. And so I started leaving messages on Facebook, friends' Facebook pages, and a thing called Caring Bridge, which is where you write, it's a website that you write like your journey on, your health journey, to keep others informed of what was going on. And I wrote on that because it allowed me to still be, so I used to write a blog of my journey because it allowed me to still connect with people, and when people came round they could be like, Kylee, as opposed to talking about health or phone calls all the time. But it allowed me an expression of a way to continue to connect into community, and being connected into community no matter what we go through is so important. And I think I've learnt that more so than ever, having to face disability and the confrontation of my body. You know, at that point I thought I had a condition that I was going to get over and it was going to be better and I could get back out and living. And over time I've had to come to the realisation that I had a condition that was going to get worse, that was going to continue changing. It affects every part of my body, so connective tissue is literally the glue that holds your body together. It's the matrix that is the sinew that connects everything. So it's like a rubber band. If you like pull a band out, it goes back in, pull it back out, goes back in. You know those rubber bands when the fat ones, when they start getting really old and you kind of pull them out and they don't go back in and they become like redundant? Kind of like my body. So all of my joints dislocate and affects all of my internal organs. And so, you know, people look at me and they're like, not too sure how to handle it. And the thing is that disability is not so far removed that it can't be anyone's issue tomorrow. It's an accident, it's an illness, it's a disease, it's a diagnosis. And we think disability is someone else's issue, that it will never happen to me. But we never know that. And you know, access to connect to community, to be involved in community, access to get up a flight of stairs, like there's a whole lot of social barriers that are the biggest thing that stops the community with disability connecting, participating in the everyday community and culture of that wider sphere. You know, when I was working about this with disability, I thought I understood it, but I really had no idea. The isolation that takes place is incredible. I remember, so I moved to Hamilton in 2012 after relearning how to use the left-hand side of my body and getting some strength in, and I realised that, you know, I have one life and one shot, and I don't choose the cards I'm dealt in life, none of us do. All we can choose is our attitudes and how we're going to respond to them. And I realised that I had one life and I had one shot, and I had to find a way to make life work for me. I relapsed 2 months after moving to Hamilton. I had 2 months in hospital, 4 months in subacute rehab, and 2 years kind of like fighting back. But I remember I went, I managed to get home into my flat with some support services, but it was like an hour in the morning, and so I was basically a prisoner in my home. I got help to get out of bed and onto the couch, and that's about it. And I remember I ran through 2 pages of organisations going, I want to get involved, I want to connect, how can I connect? And they'll be like, oh, well, you have taxi vouchers, don't you? I'm like, well, yeah. And they're like, well, you could use those. And I'm like, taxi vouchers are something that if you've got a disability and a struggle to connect into community, it gives you a reduced rate. But it only takes $15 off, and so if you're on a benefit and it takes $30 to get across town, it's just not possible. You know, I'm really lucky that I had some incredible friends who helped connect me into community. But it was still really tough, and I don't think you realise how important community is and being connected into community until you're faced with barriers that stop you. The thing is though, it doesn't just have to be physical barriers. there's mental barriers, emotional barriers, social barriers. We all face barriers in life. People look at me and they think that my chair is a limitation, that my chair restricts me, that a chair confines someone, that someone's bound to a wheelchair. But actually, if we reframe that, and I guess tonight what I want to touch on is the reframing. If we reframe that, actually my wheelchair is what allows me to get out. It's my possibility. It allows me to be here, to connect, to live life, to engage. And I'm no more defined by my chair than you are by your glasses or your hair colour or your personality, you know. It's something that I use to engage and connect with others. Recently I've been incredibly blessed and privileged, I use those terms specifically, to be a part of a demonstration in the Waikato called Enabling Good Lives. I don't know if anyone's heard about EGL, some people, yeah. So Enabling Good Lives is a partnership between the government and people with disabilities, and allows me to, instead of someone, a provider getting my funding and then them sending in someone at their time that suits them, that I have no say over, it allows me to get the money from the Ministry of Health into my bank account, a bank account in my name, and I can choose how it's spent. So I have been able to engage my local community, the friends, colleagues, like other people. And so the most amazing thing for me within that is that all of a sudden my sister's able to work with me, my friends are able to work with me, they get to know my world and see the behind the scenes, and I get to know them. And it's no longer about someone coming to help you, it's actually it's a mutual relationship. So you're able to help me, but I'm actually able to help you, because I'm able to give you a job and education, especially with like nursing and OT and history and all sorts of students. But you get a look inside my world, and I get a look inside your world. And it's about relationship, it's no longer about a task. And it's how can I support you to live a good life? And I'm able to reciprocate that. I think one of the most amazing things is that as I've engaged in my community, others have watched that person help me, and then they've emulated, and I've got to know them, and then I get to know their wider communities, and their wider communities get to know me, and the barriers have started to be broken down, and it goes back to how it used to be, where community supports community. It's no longer like, oh well, you've got support, and you've got people caring for you, so you know, you just stay there. It's more actually what I've seen is it go from like, I don't really understand, I don't really know this, it's a bit scary, to this, and it's just incredible. And I think that's for all of us. You know, we all want to be able to connect and build community. And so that's incredible. One of the things I call my team the crew. I hate the term support worker and caregiver because the crew, so the thing is that standing is really important to me. And when I lost the ability to stand on my own, I found it really difficult. And so I'd have friends help stand on each side of me. One day it hit me, so I was feeling like a little bit like, but the thing is that at that point I realised that my physical my situation was a physical manifestation of actually what we all walk in life. None of us can do life alone. None of us are independent. We're all interdependent on one another. And I realised that it's actually just a spectrum. You know, I need my crew just as much as any of you need yours. And we all need people to cheer us along, to help us. I just happen to need a bit more physical support. We're not born to do life solo. So how does culture change? Oops, sorry, I've already done that one. Disability within culture. So actions. How do we act towards disability? What do our actions say about us and others, and how do our actions make others feel? It's not just people with disability, but it's the disability concept. You know, if we are architects or builders, how are we taking other needs into consideration when we're building new spaces, or if we're working in council, or if we're in healthcare, or if we're in any of those different situations. How do we hold ourselves in those places, and how are we considering other people in that? Concepts. What concepts of disability do we have, and why? Are these helpful, and to whom? Do these concepts make sense? Not all disabilities are visible. Mine is. It didn't used to be. Are our ideas of disability accurate? Have we taken time to get these right? Are the ideas reflected in our concepts and actions? Beliefs. Do our beliefs about disability reflect that of what we actually thinking about people? Again, have we taken time to get these right? Are these beliefs truly reflected in our ideas, our concepts, and our actions? Our actions drive the concepts and ideas and beliefs. And so, who are we, and who do I want to be known by, and am I who I want to be? Am I creating the culture I want to see in the world? It's the same with bullying. If we see bullying and we don't call it out, we're complicit to it. We have the highest levels of bullying in the OECD. We have the highest levels of suicide rates. We tell our young people, don't bully each other. And yet workplace bullying in New Zealand is horrific. And so if we want a different outcome, we have to model a different behaviour, yeah? We have to be the change that we want to see. We have to consider, who am I? Am I building into the world that I want to? Am I helping to create culture with a backbone? Am I being the change I want to see? If tomorrow, disability is not so far removed that it can't be any of our worlds tomorrow. If tomorrow you found yourself in my shoes, what kind of world would you want to live in? Because the world that you want to live in and continue partaking in is the world that anyone with an access need wants to. Work is so important. It's not just about money. It's about being connected into community. It's about having something else outside of your world. It's about having a bigger purpose and feeling like you're part of a bigger community. And yet, people with disabilities have the lowest rates of employment across the board. So many people aren't even given a chance. If you're an employer and you want to see a different outcome, have you considered a wider diversity of people? People with disabilities are more committed, have less sick days, ironically, and stay the longer haul. I think because a lot of the times you understand what it's like not to have those things. Sorry. Disability isn't just doesn't necessarily mean it's just going to happen to you, right? It could be your loved one. It could be someone you fall in love with. It could be your sister, your mother, your brother, your friend. 1 in 4 people in New Zealand have a disability. Just hold that for a minute and look around the room. 1 in 4. So, you might not necessarily know someone else in your community that has a disability. You do now. Because of my work with Enabling Good Lives, I'm now able to, I was told I'd never be off the benefit, I'd never get work, I'd never do this, I'd never do that. I'm now completely off the benefit and fully self-contracting, working with the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Social Development, and an organisation called MyCare, which takes it back to the basics and allows people looking for work to get work, and people looking for help to get help, and allows the connection, and it's a book and pay system. So if we go to the last slide, the architecture of this possibility. Who do I want to be? Am I who I want to be? How do I create a culture that I want to see in the world? And what might be possible if we saw that cultural change? What might be possible if we built the world for accessibility?